I had a little bit of time to try and practice my pec pop in your honor. I'm still not very good at it. I was sitting here like trying to do the Freakie D, but I've never benched 550, so I don't think I have the pecs for it.
You'll get there. I
Yeah,
promise.
we'll see. We'll see. So I'm here today with Dennis Arnold, the second.
Right.
Yes, the second. I almost said the third. I don't know why. Freakie D on all media platforms. Actually, Freakie D 0550.
Yep.
Is that right? Yep. Cool. Uh, 550-pound bencher, 495-pound Larson presser. I think your best squat 760 in competition. Is that right?
505 Larson press and
50.
775 squat.
Okay, nice, nice. And then a 700 deadlift, right?
Yeah, 700 in competition. I did 705 in the gym with straps. So.
Nice, nice. Man, you're not getting much out of those straps.
No. That's that powerlifting specificity. I
Yeah,
never really used straps and honestly, my grip was my limiting factor on deadlifts for a while. But then I never really practiced straps, so I didn't get a whole lot out of them anyway.
gotcha. Yeah, I was talking to Max Shathar, Sam's younger brother, and he said the same thing. He said that he's just not used to straps, so he can't like exploit them, I guess. It's interesting.
Right. The lats. It's so hard to learn how to engage your lats and straps. Like if you're not used to using them, and it took me probably 3 or 4 months after I really put powerlifting to the side to get used to like deadlifting with straps because I was so accustomed to an over under grip.
Yeah, yeah. I'm amazed that no bicep problems from doing mixed grip that heavy.
I think that's something that's overstated.
Really.
People will watch all these compilations of biceps tears, but you're seeing the same biceps tears videos, 1,000 times, but you're not seeing the other 100,000 over under deadlifts
Yeah.
where your biceps are just fine. And even more so for the natural community, um, you know, we generally don't see tendon tears at all. It's super duper rare to see in naturals because we don't outgrow our tendon strength.
Mm.
Like the guys who use PEDs do. They tend to their muscles will get so strong so fast and will increase the risk to their tendons as well as other things like them being dried out and stuff from it. But I think biceps tears, like the risk is so minimal, especially for naturals, that it's not something that needs to be in the front of your thought
Yeah.
process when deadlifting.
That's good. I'm a guy who gets bicep pain when I do mixed grip. But that's probably my problem. Just being an idiot and not doing it properly. And I have like a pre-existing bicep injury, so I think that I just shouldn't go underhand with that hand. So
And of course, there's those exceptions for every rule, and if
yeah,
there is a pre-existing condition, by all means, then yeah.
yeah. Well, you're doing the Kinobody summer, so you got to be careful with those heavy weighted chin ups.
Yeah, you got that right. Just
Yeah,
the lower back tweak recently, and me being a little older now, and not being tied down to powerlifting and having a competition within a certain time frame. I just think it's a good idea for me just to take a month minimum away from heavier compound movements and not load my spine at all because I have had lower back nagging issues for years now. So just I don't want to be crippled all summer while my kid's on vacation.
oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. You got to be able to run around and juke and stuff. So,
For sure.
yeah. Did those lower back problems begin whenever you were training for powerlifting?
Yeah. I think the first time it happened, I want to say it was my first 440-pound deadlift attempt, but it was just over 400 pounds a long, long time ago. And this was before I knew how to deadlift, and I was just deadlifting with dog shit form, and it happened, and nothing popped or anything, but it was a severe strain. The first time it popped was actually at a powerlifting competition. It was my first full power meet. I was squatting. I think it was my second attempt, so it would have been. It was 570 ish around there. I think I was a 275er at the time, and I didn't get to warm up. I didn't listen to the announcer. It was my first full power meet. and I was hurriedly warming up, and I didn't get to take my last warm up, and I went and took my opener and used it as a last warm up, and it went fine. And I planned on doing my opener. It was like lower 560s, whatever the kilo conversion was. And I wanted to jump to 600 for my second, but I decided to go like 578 or something like that. And on the way up, like I had it strength wise, it was coming up, but my right QL popped on the way up, and that was the first big time I kind of heard it. And of course, I was scared that time because the first time you do something, you don't know what the hell happened. It was a pretty loud pop, and I honestly didn't know much about the body at the time, and I was thinking, back pop, spine, like, oh no. Thankfully, one of my friends was competing. He was in school to be a PT, and he kind of helped me out after squats. I went back to my motel room, and he came up there immediately after and kind of gave me some things to do to help mitigate the pain, and kind of, walk me through the process of what actually happened, and, not to be super freaked out or anything. So that was the first time. It's probably since then, that was 2014. I've done it, the same injury on both sides, probably 5 or 6 times since then.
Wow.
And most time it's just been pushing a little too far, stepping on the gas pedal when it was time to ease off of it. I think load management is a thing, and the coach in me can see it every time. The athlete in me just wants to ram my head through a wall, and that part tends to take over.
Yeah.
It's happened. It's probably a mixed bag at this point. Like 2 or 3 times deadlifting. It's happened a couple times squatting, and one time doing box jumps.
Wow, box jumps. You must have primed it though with something else though before that, right?
It was just a box jump day, but again, all the training leading up to it and everything,
Was just what carried over. Yeah.
Accumulates, and we don't always see it or take into account, especially when we're doing a different movement. We're like, well, I squatted and deadlifted heavy, but I'm not loading up nothing today. I'm just doing some jumps. But even though there's no load on your back, the force you probably produce more force when you're jumping than when you're doing a squat. And, sometimes you don't always take that into account either.
Right. What were like 2 or 3 things that you did to manage the back stuff, preventatively or just kind of rehabbing it?
So rehab, like immediately, you want to kind of minimize the pain as much as you can, just to be comfortable and relax. And I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice, of course, but if it's legal, like smoking weed or ingesting some THC wherever you're at can help relax. Alcohol, of course. That's what my PT told me. My PT friend, he was like, "Dude, if you can go across the street and grab a beer or something, it's going to help you like in the immediate future. Obviously, you don't. This is not a long-term treatment, of course, but that." Of course, going to a doctor and getting prescribed muscle relaxers. I found muscle relaxers in this instant to be like the very best thing. Um, Again, don't go doing shady shit, of course, acquiring these things, but muscle relaxers help me a ton because it's balled up and so tight, and just getting it to release is the biggest thing. That aside, staying in motion, like just walking. I like light reverse hypers, not stretching it too far, of course, but just keeping motion in there. Uh, laying down, sitting down seems to be the worst thing for the lower back in particular.
Yeah.
Uh, that's the one thing when it does happen is I dread going to bed at night because I know I'm going to be tight and stiff in the morning, and I try to sleep on a heating pad and stuff these days just to relax it as much as possible. But you can train around it. You obviously don't want to put too much load on it. The motion is the best thing. I like the elliptical machine. It seems to loosen it up a bit. When you probably not the first day or two, but 3-4 days after, some 45-degree back extensions, very slowly, just to make sure you're not aggravating anything. And mainly, it's doing what you can, and as much range of motion as you can without aggravating or causing pain, and gradually working that range of motion back until you're completely pain free, and then minimally dosing the load, gradually back into it. And these days it's more frustrating than anything because I've been there and I've done it, and I know what the setback is, and I hate a setback at any point, minimal or however long it takes. But
Yeah.
it doesn't scare me like it used to. The first couple times were scary, and now it's like, well, been here, done that. It just sucks, and you gotta suck it up and take that step back and be frustrated and get over it.
Yeah, I hurt my back, and I think it was probably my QL, or it was in that area, self-diagnosed, obviously, back in
Right.
August. And I mean, I took probably 10 weeks off of squatting and deadlifting. I started back with like light front squats, and I was doing the reverse hyper. I bought an inversion table that I still have, and I was doing Jefferson curls, like where you're kind of rounding your lower back, like doing a deficit deadlift with just the bar starting out. And
Right.
I was patient. I was probably too patient because I was afraid. But I remember when it first happened, I couldn't like get myself up to get into my truck leaving the gym. It took me forever. And
Right.
yeah, yeah. And I remember, having pain. It was hard to fall asleep. And it just feels like in that moment, this is never going to go away. This is the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah, you gotta, roll out of bed and sometimes like roll out onto your knees and very gingerly get up. And usually, even the next day or 2 days after, once you get to walking around a little bit in the morning and get some motion, like the pain doesn't go all the way away, but it feels a little better through the rest of the day. And then you go back to sleep at night, wake up the next morning, and you're like, fuck, you gotta start it all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
2 steps forward, 1 step back. But
right.
the step is actually when you're lying down, when you get still. So,
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And are doing Larson press now just to avoid aggravating it. Is that right?
Um, I'm doing incline press at the moment. I was doing incline log press,
Yeah,
and that's another thing. Like I really didn't take into account like the load on my back from that, but getting up over 300-pound log, it's not hard, obviously, but doing it over and over again. And sometimes on the tires, it gets a little lopsided, and deadlifting it up onto your lap and rolling
yeah.
it up into your lap. Like there's some lower back fatigue there from that too that I wasn't taking into account either. Um, so I just switched to incline bench press for now because I don't have to pick it up off the floor.
Yeah.
I have in the past traditionally done Larson press, not necessarily like from an injury, but just to minimize lower back fatigue in
Mhm.
general. That was one of my main reasons for using it. And I would like in my powerlifting off season use it exclusively a lot of
Wow.
times. Uh, just to save lower back fatigue for squats and deadlifts,
Yeah.
because I do have a really tight bench setup and I get a pretty good arch, but I don't get it from the thoracic mobility that some of the like the smaller ladies and men do.
Mhm.
You see like the really big arches. Mine's more from forcing myself into position,
Yeah, just
which
cramming your
isn't really
back
the
like
best
a
long term, but
yeah.
it's good, short term for getting into
Yeah.
position. So I would do the Larson presses in my off season to mitigate some of that.
Yeah, you're a legendary Larson presser. Sam took it from you, Sam Shathar. And it's interesting to me because it sounds like you started doing it to manage low back fatigue, like you said, but did you eventually find that it was a good way to just drive up your bench press in and of itself?
Absolutely, I think there's a lot to sometimes just making a movement harder, while keeping the mechanics very similar. I.e., a deficit deadlift or a closer stance squat, of course, um, and that kind of concept. I still set up my arch when I do a Larson press. It's not as prevalent because my feet aren't planted, so I don't get quite as much of an arch. But there's still some arch, just to protect your shoulders and everything and be in good position. But there's a little bit more range of motion with it, and especially like in a hypertrophy block or something like that. Uh, it's going to go a long way towards building a little bit more muscle, and then just generally speaking, like I said, the harder variation if you can Larson press 500 pounds by proxy, you should be able to bench press more than that. How much more is going to be individual. Generally, 5 to 10% is what I found for most people is going to be the difference in your Larson press and your bench press. I think people put too much emphasis on how much leg drive actually gives you in bench press.
Mhm.
It is important, but it's not like a game changing important.
Yeah,
So yeah, it is a good driver of the bench press in general. Mitigating lower back fatigue or not.
that makes sense. It's worth rewinding a little bit to talk about how you became the guy who's benching 550 because it's pretty legendary. I mean, you're just in the gym with your buddy benching every day basically and playing basketball. Is that right?
So yeah. This is rewinding way back. So
Yeah.
if we want to go back to the very very start in high school, we had a weightlifting class that was an elective, and I signed up for it freshman year. I didn't get it. It was obviously a very popular elective. Signed up for it sophomore year, didn't get it. Junior year, I finally got it, and I got it for all year. We had uh, a half a year you would take 4 classes, and the next half a year you would take 4 classes. So I,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
actually got weightlifting and then advanced weightlifting back to back. Um, and it wasn't a very like comprehensive class. It was one of the football coaches just babysitting us, doing pretty much what we wanted to do. And so we bench press. That's all anybody wants to do. And so I took that class, and it was bench pressing and then playing basketball basically, and then I carried that on later. But I went. My very first bench press was 145 pounds. And then by the end of that year, I benched 245. So in a school year, I went from 145 to
Wow.
245. I was weighing like 185 at the end of the year. Then I didn't bench press for I don't know 2 or 3 years after that. Me and a buddy of mine were roommates. Me, him, and my girlfriend at the time. And one year with my income taxes, I bought a weight bench from Sears, like a 300-pound Weeder Olympic weight set. And me and him would, after work, we worked at Dillard's in a shopping mall. And every day after work, we would just come home and bench. And then after bench, we would just go play basketball. And that was our legs. And we would
Nice.
do that Monday through Friday. Every Monday, we'd max out. And then we would just do like a bunch of heavy reps. Every Tuesday, we would do like the card game. So you take a deck of cards, you flip a card. If it's 9, you do 9 reps. If it's face card, you do 10 reps until you go through the whole deck. And we'd use 135 and we'd do the card game.
Wow.
Yeah. Wednesday, we would just kind of do whatever. Thursday was almost like another Monday. We would max out if it was there. If not, just do heavy. And then Friday, we would do a bunch of reps again. So 5 days in a row, balls to the wall. We were smoking cigarettes, drinking while we were doing it. Didn't know anything about periodization or anything like that. And that year, I went from like 235 to 405 in a calendar year. And now we ate a lot of food. We did take creatine. We read muscle magazines that creatine was good. So we take creatine and like 60-gram protein shakes. And just eat copious amounts of Chinese food from the food court mall in the mall. And in retrospect, sodium, carbs, and protein aplenty.
It actually
Um,
worked. Yeah, you didn't realize that it was the perfect formula.
right. Yeah, we didn't even know. And honestly, like not squatting or deadlifting, which in retrospect, I would have squatted and deadlifted, but that probably saved some recovery to be able to bench, all the
Yeah.
time. And I even think there's something to the basketball, like, doing this motion over and over again, getting blood flow in there after bench pressing heavy probably helped a little bit too. But yeah, that was really fun. It's fun times to look back on. And then when we weren't playing basketball or bench pressing, we were probably playing Call of Duty or something, or partying. So I think there's a few things to take away there. Um, you don't have to be perfect. Sometimes just doing the thing. Uh, a lot of times, just doing the thing gets you better at the thing. Everybody wants to know what accessory to do or what supplementary movement to do, et cetera, et cetera. Do the fucking thing. Like, holy
Yeah.
shit, doing the thing is going to get you good at the thing. And then, you know, we were young, of course, so hormones were probably on our side. Recovery was on our side. We were like 22, 23 years old. But yeah, that carried me a long way. Just building that capacity. And if you listen, I don't know if any of your audience has listened to Chad Wesley Smith, the Juggernaut podcast.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of the elite athletes, Olympic athletes that he's talked to over the years, they have similar origins in that they just fucking worked too much, you know, overtrained when they were very young, to a very high degree. And they say the same. They're like, you know, it was dumb, but in retrospect, you know, it built that work capacity and that work ethic. And it's a very common thread among a lot of those people. So I think that helped a lot. Anyway, fast forward a little bit. We ended up moving out, going separate ways. Me and my girlfriend wanted our own place, and his girlfriend got pregnant, so they moved to their own place. And I didn't lift again for a little bit. Then we were still in Florida. Then I ended up getting the job up here. Moved up here with like $200 in a PT Cruiser and my weight set. I fortunately where I work, we have a big warehouse. We had an empty office building, so I got to put my weight bench back there. So I went back to what I knew, just benching all the fucking time. I think my bench dropped back down to like the mid 300s just from not doing it. And I had gotten fat because I had stopped working out and I kept eating. So I got back to that, and it probably took me half a year or so. I was back up and I eclipsed my old 1 rep max, and I was in like the lower mid 400s, 425, 435. That's when I started uploading to YouTube. And just on a whim, I was like, well, shit, you know, you think you're the strongest person ever because you haven't seen nothing else. This was 2013, I think, and I uploaded, I want to say like a 405 for a triple. I was wearing gloves, wearing like a pair of Timbs and jeans.
Oh my God. That's so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I uploaded it, and over the course of the next couple of months, I uploaded a few videos and found some like-minded individuals. And I forget who it was. Somebody said, man, that's good bench press. You should check into powerlifting. I think you would be good at it. It might have been Toby Adler at the time that told me. And so I did, and I discovered squats and deadlifts and was like, wow, I should start training that. And I posted a really high squat and got flamed. And that's what started me on powerlifting. And I ended up going to an actual gym. I got a gym membership. When I say actual gym, it was called Shake and Bake Fitness and Tanning. Was the first gym I went to.
I can picture it, and I can hear the soundtrack of Shake and Bake. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like they had an actual like FM radio in there, and it was set to like the not the oldies channel, but like the 80s, 90s, and 2000s variety pop channel. So I'd go in there, and like you'd have 2 plates on the bench, and everybody would stop and start staring. And it's like, well, I'm just kind of warming up, guys, so just stay for the show. And started squatting and deadlifting and stuff in there. And I did my first push-pull in there, training in there, and I ended up benching 424 in competition. I wasn't ready for the competition pause. Like I'd started pausing my bench in training, but you think you're pausing for long enough in training, and it feels like a long time, but it's really not.
Yeah.
And I had hit 440 pretty easy in there. And I planned on benching like 460 or something in my competition. This was in 2014, early 2014. And I opened with 385 and it was easy. And I jumped to 424 and it was a grinder, like a super grinder. And I'd cut weight. Like I'd use the competition as a motivator to drop some weight. I was weighing around 260 something, and I signed up as a 242, so I didn't give myself a choice. And I ended up weighing in at 236. And I benched 424. I deadlifted 556, which I deadlifted 550 in the gym was my previously best. So I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
But that got me hooked. And I ended up rebounding off that cut really hard and gaining a lot of weight in short order. But my bench was skyrocketing. So I was just
Yeah.
like, fuck it, I'm just going to keep eating. And I ended up hitting my first like 500-pound bench in the gym later that year. And I was in the upper 260s, right at 270 when I hit that. And it was a pretty legit clean pause and everything in the gym. But I didn't hit 500 in the meet until it was almost like a year later in competition. But that's what brought me to 500. And really, I mean, to be honest, there was not like a lot of super high level advanced trickery going on to get me to 500. It was mostly just a lot of bench pressing, a lot of volume, a lot of intensity. Uh, I didn't do a whole lot of upper back work, to be honest. And I know that that's a big thing is big back, big bench. I was deadlifting, so I don't want to say I didn't do any back work. That's not necessarily an upper back movement, but your upper back does get hit with deadlifts. And I even think to an extent, a lot of people overlook the fact of when you are bench pressing, it's not like your upper back muscles aren't doing anything. Like they are engaged, they are working, and there is going to be some hypertrophy response just from that. Again, it's not targeted, it's not direct, it's not the best way to build your upper back, bro. But there's some work being done there enough to support what you're doing, obviously, or you wouldn't be able to bench press it. So that it really, man, like the calories, I was sleeping really well. I had a good routine, a good schedule, and I practiced bench pressing a lot. And I think a lot of people, if they weren't scared to put on some ugly weight, would have a higher ceiling than they think they have without needing Jedi mind tricks to coax out, that extra 5 to 10%. And that's all specialty shit's going to get you. Like you're not going to see this profound amount of gains from this one trick that, fitness trainers hate you for. You're going to get 90% of the way there from the basics. And then hopefully you learn, what you respond to and training your weak points to it, that you can milk out that extra 5 or 10%, there at the end of the road.
Yeah. I've seen the reverse of that. I've been trying to make the lightweight class for the strongman competition I signed up for, and my pressing has just gone, as I've been dropping weight, way faster than I expected it to. I'm not losing at like an extreme deficit or anything, but it was just like, oh my God. I mean, I haven't been benching as a primary movement. I've been focusing on overhead for the thing, but like I went in there to bench as an accessory today and I was like, what the hell? Did I misload this? But I definitely have seen my best bench progress has definitely come when I let myself be a little bit beefier.
Certainly. And I think for natural lifters in particular, there's two ways to be in a state of anabolism. One is when you're sleeping, the other is when you're in a caloric surplus. That's it.
If you had a client who was trying to just see what they could do on bench without concern for fitting into a weight class, would you recommend a rate of gain for them, like this many pounds a month, or is it just stay in that surplus?
It's going to be individual. What's their timeline? Of course, if they're like, "Oh, I want to bench X by this date," I would generally recommend against that anyway. But if they were hell bent on, I want to bench as much as possible by the end of the year, for example, fucking turbo volt. You've set a hard date, and you're hell bent on benching the most you can possibly bench by the end of the year. Just fucking eat everything, eat some more. Generally speaking, slow and steady is going to win the race. It is, for lack of a better term, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I would probably, recommend there's no X number per month, but between a half pound and 2 pounds a month, depending how big you are already,
Yeah.
how young you are, how old you are, how experienced you are, whatever the case may be. If just you're hell bent on, I want the biggest bench possible. I think milking it out over time is going to keep you healthier for longer, which also plays a part. And it's probably your body composition will be, even though we don't care about it per se, it's going to be slightly better and possibly allow you to get to a heavier overall weight with more muscle mass.
Yeah.
Then turbo bulking, you're going to add a lot more fat, and while that can help with leverages, fat cells don't contract and push the weight, so you want as much muscle as possible while you're doing it. So yeah, generally would be slow and steady, but if they have like a hard date, especially the sooner the date, the more rapid of a weight gain would certainly be suggested.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I'll tell you what, I'm weighing in at 10 a.m. on June 27th. I got to be 180 pounds at 10 a.m. and I'm immediately going back and do a surplus after that.
For
I'm
sure.
very ready to rebound out of that and start feeling stronger again instead of trying to just minimize my strength loss. I know that you had been competing at 308 whenever you decided to do your big weight loss phase.
Yep.
And you got down to, I think, like you were weighing in 215, 216 at your lowest. Is that right?
I weighed in at 212 for a meet, was like my
Okay.
lowest scale weight, but
Yeah.
that was with a water cut. The lowest weight I got to, like real weight, was right there at 215.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. What motivated that for you to make that change?
It's kind of funny. Like anybody who's been familiar with my channel for any amount of time knows, like I've always said it for years that at the end of the line there was a big cut coming when I was done chasing strength goals. And I had hit all of my initial goals. Like initially, I wanted to squat 600, bench 500, deadlift 700. I ended up squatting well over 700 way before I ever deadlifted 700.
Wow.
But I was still chasing a 2,000-pound total in a meet. Like all my best competition lifts, May 2000. I was a half inch away from locking out a 700-pound deadlift that on that day with straps, I would have been good for fucking 750. Like I was strong as
Yeah.
fuck. Just my grip wasn't there. My hands were puffy and I couldn't hang on. But the weight flew off the floor. And if I showed you a still picture of it, it looks like a locked out deadlift. But I
Yeah.
was right there. I just didn't get it. Um, I would have quit powerlifting right then if I would have got that day.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
but I assumed, I was like, that was my first meet in knee wraps, and I was like, well, 2000 is obviously there, so I'll just hit it next meet. And then life circumstances happened and everything, and a lot of them, and then some injuries piled up. But more recently, I wanted 1800 in a meet in sleeves. That's something that I was capable of years ago, but I tore my meniscus, and that's something that I wanted to do after I tore my meniscus. And this was before like these new stiff sleeves came out too. So I actually did that meet. What are we in now? 2024. So that was in 2022. Fuck, time flies. I did that in January 2022 as a 308. And then I intended, what did I squatted 639. I benched 519 and I deadlifted 644. And then I was going to compete at 308 again in July, and I just wanted to beat those numbers. I got the flu in March, and I lost like 10 pounds over a weekend of not being able to eat really anything. And then I don't know. I just had to reset my mind and in my body over that weekend. I don't know if it was some sort of spiritual thing. Like it was literally almost a 4-day fast. I think over 4 days I ate like one piece of toast and one can of soup.
Oh my God.
And tried to drink as much Pedialyte as I could.
Yeah.
And I was just like, fuck it, let's see where this goes. And there it went. Like that ended up,
Wow.
that was the catalyst for the big cut. Had no plans on doing it then. I knew it was kind of getting close to time. I'm almost 40. I was getting towards the end of the road anyway, and really thoughts of that 2000 were kind of still in the back of my mind, but it was going to be like a 2-year process of, getting everything strong and dialed in and hoping I didn't get injured anytime within the next 2 years. And I was on the right path. But when I got the flu, it really dawned on me, like, not getting sick for 2 years may or may not happen. And then, who knows? And so, and it would take a level of focus that, I had almost got divorced back in 2018 because I was like, powerlifting was first. And, I was given an ultimatum, and, I chose my family. So I put powerlifting to the back burner a little bit and found a new rhythm. And then, I was still training powerlifting, of course. And I found a way to manage the time and still compete. But like, to get 2000 again, I was going to have to talk to my wife, and, there's going to have to be conversations to be had, not just me choosing it again. So having that 10-pound weight loss over the weekend, and I was just like, fuck it, let's go. Let's see where it takes me. And then, you get down in the 280s and like, well, we're going somewhere. And then you're in the 270s. And normally, because I cut weight before, I would usually always cut after a meet, but I would cut down to about 270. That was my happy place for powerlifting off season. I could sleep good. I felt comfortable. So when I get up, 300 or so, I could hold 300 plus for a month or two, but inevitably I'd get sick. So I'd always cut weight after that. Then I got down to the 260s and the 250s, and down to the 250s, I hadn't been in the 250s since like 2017 or 2018.
Wow.
Or 2016, I got down to the 250s. And then down in the 240s, I was like, okay, that's when it really set in. And it took me losing 60 pounds to realize that, okay, it's real this time.
Yeah.
And then I just kept going and going and going. And it finally stalled out right around 230. And I had to put a little extra effort in to get down under 220. And it took about a year to get, from 300-ish, down to under 220.
Yeah, it's incredible. That kind of transformation is just so hard to achieve. The consistency of the discipline is it's remarkable. And I'm sure that you were carrying in the habits that got you to that almost 2,000-pound powerlifting total, and you were just reapplying them to your nutritional approach.
Right. And I always did my cardio. That's one thing I was always very adamant about. I adopted that in like 2015. So even at my biggest, I was doing 30 to 45-minute sessions of list cardio, about 150 beats per minute, typically, 3 to 5 times a week, oftentimes after training. So I was always in good cardio shape. And that certainly helped when it came to losing the weight, because I already had that built in. And then I ate a lot. Obviously, if I'm doing cardio training 5 days a week and being 300 pounds, you're eating a lot of fucking food. But I always ate like the good clean foods first, and then I would eat desserts and M&Ms and candy and shit, after to help with the weight. So there were those good habits built in, as well as the discipline itself, of course, because I don't like turning down the candy and stuff.
Yeah.
I do have a big sweet tooth. And finding ways to redirect some of those sweet tooths with substituting options, and finding ways to eat large volume of food with low calories. I have an insane appetite. Like it's not human. It's my now soon to be ex-wife, would say all the time, like, just how both fascinated and disgusted she was at the same time with just the sheer amounts of food I could eat.
Yeah.
And early on in, like, not like that first weekend, of course, but when I actually was like, okay, I'm going to cut, I came up with this sort of template. And I didn't eat this every day, of course. And as time went on, it changed completely. But 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breast, 7 pounds of watermelon, the flesh, not like a 7 pound watermelon, but
Yeah.
7 pounds of the watermelon that you actually eat.
Jesus.
10 whole eggs in a day is about 11 pounds of food. And without any sauces or anything, it's like right at 2,600 calories, 250 grams of protein, 250 grams of carbs, and 80 grams of fat. And then there's still room for like sugar-free sauces and stuff like that. So you could get under 3,000 calories with over 200 grams of protein, and 11 pounds of total food volume in a day.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's how my mind had to trick myself into keeping the calories down. And now over time, like, discipline starts to set in and habits, and I didn't want to eat 11 pounds of food every day anymore. But very early on, I leaned heavily on like super duper high volume to help, with my appetite and my cravings.
Yeah.
And then I did a lot of fasting too, and not for any magical benefits that people like to charlatan about.
Yeah.
Just for uh, calorie control, and then like I have the discipline to fast for X amount of hours, and then I can eat a 7,000 calorie meal
Yeah.
in one sitting because I fasted for 2 days. So that's 3,500 calories per day. An average when you average things out at the
Yeah.
end of the day, and now that's not something like I'm going to like binge eat and then fast like regularly, but
Yeah.
I would do 2 24-hour fasts a week, and then probably once a month or so, give or take, I would do like a big 48 or 72-hour fast, and then just absolutely gluttonize myself just to keep my sanity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it's good. It's not just good for the relief of having like a satiating meal at the end of it. It's also good for the breaking the habit of eating, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And
No, I agree with that
yeah,
100%.
yeah, because you're not getting that regular dopamine fix during that fasting period. And of course you have the boost at the end, but I think there's something in our programming as humans that is attuned to having a period without food that's longer than we're accustomed to going, in Western society, and then having like a large meal. I think that was just the rhythm of how we had to live in our past, like evolutionarily. So that we've still got some leftover wiring that's inclined that in that direction.
Yeah. There's probably something to that, but you nailed it big time. Like on the getting accustomed to not having that dopamine hit over and over, and especially like in this community, a lot of people like the 5 to 7 smaller meals a day.
Yeah.
Just constantly eating, and if that's helping somebody hit their goals and what they're doing, then that's fine. I can't do that because I'm just gonna be hungry all day.
Right.
So I would rather, if I'm going to be hungry all day, just let me be hungry all day and not eat, and then have that prize at the end of it where I can actually eat and feel satisfied and be full. And if I'm 1 to 2% less optimal in my muscle building or whatever, I'll take that trade off all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, adherence is a huge part of it. You've got to find something that you're going to stick to, 99, 100% of the time versus the optimal thing that you're going to not be able to adhere to.
Yeah, without adherence, there's nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you can't adhere to it, who cares what's optimal?
Right.
You're not adhering to it anyway. So yeah, absolutely.
Did
And
you
same with
find
training.
oh,
That's what you do with training too. Like you don't, if you're not, like, I know it got meme, but iliac pull downs like was the meme of the optimal bros. That shit ain't fun. Like,
no, hell
I
no.
mean, yeah, throw them in there from time to time for a training block and be
Yeah.
disciplined. But I don't look forward to doing that. I look forward to going and smashing some pull ups and strapping weights to me, and just feeling that raw feeling of just pulling some heavy ass weights up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I went through a period where I felt like I had to be doing like chest supported seal rows with like perfect like scapular,
Right.
not retraction, the opposite of retraction, like stretching it, depression or
Yeah.
whatever. And I missed barbell rows, man. And that when I went back to them, I was like, my back is so much more sore from this than doing those like beautiful in one seal rows or whatever.
Right. because
Yeah.
you buy into the barbell rows, like you like it, you want to do it, you put more
Yeah.
intensity into it, you're contracting your muscles harder because of it.
Yeah.
And though, and it's not to disrespect those optimal movements because they
Yeah.
have their place and they're good movements and they're good to do, but they just what you love doing, you're going to buy into and you're going to do it with so much more intent that you're going to get more out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And for you, uh, didn't your training kind of become more intuitive during this dieting period, and you were stepping outside of just strictly progressing your main lifts?
Yeah, and that's something I again like even during the heyday of my powerlifting, like immediately after a meet when I cut weight, I would go and do like different stuff, like the box jumps and stuff I like doing, and work in some different movements. So that was kind of already built in there too, and I did like when I was doing this cut, like powerlifting was out the window. I didn't care about powerlifting for the time being. So some of those off-season movement things I would do for fun, like I got to really explore in a more focused manner. And I would, and even if I got into a particular movement that I liked for a while, like I knew there wasn't any impending competition to do with it or something. So if on a given day I was like, I'm kind of burned out from it a little bit, let me do something else. I'd just do something else because I didn't have any hard goals or deadlines or anything. So just being in the gym and having fun, doing more or less what I wanted to on a given day. There was still certainly some structure to it. Like it would usually be one or two compound movements and or an athletic movement, followed by some smaller accessories and some cardio. But those movements, I could change them on a whim based on how I felt. Even as far as like the set and rep schemes too. If I wanted to go heavier on a particular day just because of it, like I wasn't worried about transitioning, like a hypertrophy block to a strength block to a peaking
Yeah.
block. I just, maybe I'd do some volume for a couple weeks, throw in a heavy day just for fun or whatever. And even still, I've kind of carried that with me. I'm now, there are like I have my incline log press goal, which I've set to the side temporarily to let my back heal.
Yeah.
But even with my goals now, I can on a given day, like I'm still going to, attack them and prioritize them and progress them and periodize them. But if there's a particular day, like I just want to go have fun in the gym today, again, I don't have any hard deadlines or meet dates or
Right.
anything. So I'll just go have a fun day and then get back to it a week later.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that goes back to that 1 or 2% of like hypothetical optimality that's getting lost because it just doesn't really matter, and it's more
Right.
motivating to, yeah. Yeah. Is this period of time whenever your trademarked enterprise Crossfat emerged?
No, I actually, I would have to go back and look, but I think I want to say 2016 is maybe when I started with the Crossfat
Okay.
stuff. Um, and I did do that was like my biggest weight cut to date was back in 2016. That was the last time I got down into like the 250s. Um, but yeah, I actually I've only recently tied my best box jump ever, which is like 47 inches. And I did that at 288 pounds. I tore my meniscus between then and now. So it's even at a lighter body weight, it's been taking some effort to build that power back up and build my knee back up. But yeah, that's been around for a while. It just was kind of in the background because powerlifting was still
Yeah.
prevalent. But that's what I would typically call my off seasons would be
Mm.
CrossFat. And then here, the last year or so, the CrossFat has kind of taken priority, if
Yeah.
you will. So yeah, it's come full circle there.
Yeah. That 47-inch box jump at
With an approach
288.
step, not standing.
Yeah.
Just so we're
Yeah.
clear, with an approach step.
Well, I mean, to be moving your body at 288 pounds that high in that's remarkable. Are you sure you haven't forgotten to talk about your college football days? D1 running back or something?
I swear. I played sports as a kid,
Yeah.
but then in middle school I discovered marijuana and pussy. So I hope cussing's allowed on here. My bad. You can edit them out. But
Oh, this is a very blue channel, so you're good.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weed and women carried me through high school and my early adult days. I really like, honestly, I don't have a problem with marijuana, of course, but it really demotivated me.
Mm.
And some people are like that. Like some people can every day and thrive and be productive. I am not one of those people. So, I spent a lot of years being a stoner burnout, and I should have played sports like through high school, and who knows where that would have led to. It's speculation, of course, but I played a lot as a kid, and I was usually one of the better kids on my team. Always made the all stars and stuff. So that's built within me, of course. But yeah, I got very lazy there for a while.
Well, I count myself lucky that I was ugly and uncool enough to not be able to discover weed and women until later in life.
So that was a blessing in disguise.
That's right. Yeah. I was a little like a 100-pound, bald headed, brace faced teenager running cross country at a high level. So that was completely out of my awareness until
Right.
much later in my life. I have been keeping up with your incline log press and the rowing. It's funny to me that you qualify a 300-pound log clean as light, as not a lot of weight. But I guess if you deadlift it over 700, it's
Well,
relative.
to be fair, it's like cleaning it on the incline. Now, like to a 300-pound log clean, like standing, that
Yeah.
certainly there's some, but when you're laying down on the incline bench presses,
Yeah.
it looks more impressive than it actually is.
When did you start messing with the log?
Um, we've had one in our gym for years, and I think the first time I ever did it, it was a women's log, the 72 pounder back. Oh gosh, I don't know. It would have been 2016 or something.
Mm.
I did like 250 on a clean and press. This is after I benched 500. And it would be something in the off season I do from time to time just for fun. I did like one training block when I was big, and I doubled 302 strict with the women's log, so a little bit more range of motion. And then I did 335 with the men's log with leg drive and a push press. And my leg drive is fucking shit. It's terrible. But that was the most I'd ever done with it. After I lost the weight, I started using the log a lot more as a primary movement on a press day. Not too long ago, I did 285 or 282 standing strict with room to spare, and that's my like post weight loss PR. Again, I suck at leg drive. I tried using leg drive on a lighter weight and I couldn't get it, so I did it strict with 282. And then I just like incline log press looked like fun. Like I forget. I think it was. Do you know Chris Baccio in the strongman community?
No.
He's in Ohio. He hosts a lot of meet. He does. He's been in the game for years. I think I saw him doing incline log press, and I was like, "Wow, that looks like a fun movement to do." I don't have nothing better to do right now, so I tried it one day, and I was like, "Well, let's just start progressing this." And it's been a lot of fun. Like, and it's one of those. It's an ego feeder a little bit too, because you can incline log press a lot more than you can standing log press.
Sure.
And you start stacking those 25s on the end, and they get to clanging around, and the gym turns and watches.
Yeah.
And then you're repping it, and so yeah. But it's been fun, and I look forward to getting back to it. But log's just fun. Like a lot of the
Yeah.
strongman implements are just fun. I think generally speaking, strongman is way more fun than powerlifting.
Yeah.
Powerlifting, if you like being meticulous, and if you're one of those people, for example, like when you play a JRPG and you like grinding out the levels and just getting your characters OP, that's powerlifting.
Yeah.
You're doing a
Yeah.
lot of the same thing over and over and over and just making yourself overpowered,
Yeah.
at very specific movements. Strongman's got a lot more variety to it.
Yeah, the thing I think that the men's log, like the 12-inch log,
Right.
is yeah, it's less range of motion, but you also have to move your face farther out of the way. And for me, that makes it harder, than
You
the
know,
10
you
inch.
got a point there.
Yeah.
Standing, yes. Incline
Oh,
log
right, but
presses,
incline, sure. Yeah,
yeah,
that makes
way
sense.
easier. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Would you, if somebody were trying to bring up their log press, and I have a feeling I know the answer to this, but I'm just curious, do you think that focusing on strict barbell overhead is gonna uh directly carry over to log press?
If you're a beginner or intermediate, maybe.
Okay.
If you're more of that later intermediate,
Hmm.
you need to do more log press.
Yeah. That's I've
uh,
been conflicted about that. In kind of up prepping for this meet, I'm wondering if I should just be leave log press as my main press all the time instead of like alternating log and barbell OHP.
I would,
Yeah,
like have barbell OHP if you want it in there as like a secondary movement.
that makes sense.
I'll tell you something though, that the incline log press. So, I told you I just recently hit that 282 standing.
Yeah.
I hit 272 before I started doing the incline log presses, and it was like an RPE 11, shaky
Wow.
arms, barely
Yeah,
locked out. I had not done any standing log presses between that 272 and the 282. I had only done the incline log press,
that's
and
crazy.
I hit that 282 like
Yeah.
smooth with room in the tank. Uh,
Wow.
so the overload probably helped a lot, and I think that helped a lot with confidence too, because I had hit I think at 382 for a double on the incline log press. So you're talking about 100 pounds more and doubling it.
Right.
So it made, in my mind is like, well, this is 100 pounds less than what I've hit. Obviously it's a different movement altogether,
Yeah.
but having that same implement, that same grip, holding it in your hands,
Yeah.
and obviously the muscle I built because I'd been step loading it, just building volume. But yeah, there's a big carryover from incline log directly to my standing overhead log.
That's interesting. Yeah, and I guess that I mean any log press, you're kind of putting yourself in an inclined position because of how you have to move your head out of the way. And I see a lot of guys, they don't really push their head through until a lot later than you would if you were doing like a barbell OHP and like they try to kind of keep back.
Right. Of course, now the strongman guy at my gym. He's a what is 170, whatever that weight class is. I'm not super familiar with the
Like
strongman weight class.
175, like the lightweight guys.
175.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He's practicing split jerks.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So he's
with the
I think
log.
he qualified for nationals at our last competition. So he's been practicing split jerks for his overhead.
Okay, that's really cool. Yeah, I'm signed up for two of them. The first one's July 27th. The second one's October 12th. The one July 27th, it's a standing incline log press. So it's kind of like what you've been doing,
Oh
except
wow.
you don't sit on the bench. Like you clean it, to your lap, and there's like this 75-degree bench without a bottom. Like they kind of rigged it themselves, and you just have to slowly tilt back until your back touches it and you're kind of pressing, from that. But I mean, I don't think you don't have to have your back flat against it. So I mean, you're creating like probably a 50, 45-degree incline if you really kind of push your hips forward.
Right.
But it's weird. So I've been conflicted about how to train for it. And I just think speaking with you and your bench approach, certainly, maybe I just need to do the competition thing, as my
Right.
main
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I would do because just thinking, like hearing that, like that kind of sounds scary almost. Like there's going to be a moment of a little bit of like weightlessness, letting
Yeah.
yourself go back while
Yeah.
you're standing. Yeah, I would definitely, I would think like getting used to that feeling would be priority number one, so that it's not foreign to you when you get there.
Yeah, first work set I did on log, and this was only a few days ago. I blacked out, like dropped it. I knew it was happening, so like I went like that, and I just stumbled back. So yeah, very different. I mean, a lot of strongman seems like you just have to get used to choking yourself with implements.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you
Yeah,
there.
I just started doing like super long pause front squats too, and I also I passed out doing like a 7-second front squat pause. And I came to with the bar like this far from my neck. I just like rolled backwards, and the plate saved me. But I didn't even know it
Right.
was happening. Like I think I just blood choked myself. Or maybe I have some like pre-existing medical condition I need to get checked out. Yeah.
I've gone out on front squats before. I actually used to do this technique. Um, my friend Derek Wilcox, he's
Oh
a
yeah.
PhD. He works for Renaissance Periodization, lightest man to squat 1,000 pounds in competition. Um, he had me. He used to guinea pig on me a little bit, and he would have
Nice.
his weightlifters do a front squat. But when they got down in the hole, he would have them exhale all their air, and then retake a breath, and then come out of the hole
Oh
with
wow.
and this is like ultra high level
Yeah.
specificity that if shit went south on their clean and they lost their breath for some reason, is training them to get it back, and then be able to finish the front squat before they did their jerk. And I've gone out on front squats regularly anyway, and that just adds that extra element of danger. Like, just
Yeah.
like, what, you're like, I'm already choking myself out and you want me to exhale everything.
Right.
It was interesting. I did it for a few weeks, just for fun, to help him
Yeah.
out, because I had no need for it,
Yeah.
honestly. But it was weird. I did 4 plates and exhaled everything, brought it back in, and yeah. But I was actually telling a friend a couple weeks ago. She just started doing front squats, and I was telling her that, like, I've front squatted 550 pounds, and I've had 275 pounds like put me lights out before. Like, they're
Wow.
they're they're
Yeah.
they're so fickle.
Yeah, that's great. It's just, do you think it comes down to bar positioning and how you're aware of your breath before you go down?
Yeah, it's bar positioning, and a lot of time, you get it up on there good, and I don't know, maybe it gets the blood, your carotid artery, a little bit too, and
Yeah.
stops some of the blood flow too. So no matter how good of air you got, that blood stops going to your brain. Yeah, I mean, you're going out. So, it's a fine line of getting it set in there just right, versus having it a little too low, and then you're just going to dump it forward anyway.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. Like, I try to get them done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, get out of that compromised position at the bottom.
Yeah,
And you always do the cross grip, right?
yeah.
Yeah, the Ronnie Coleman style.
I just I've got enough mobility in my shoulders to start a OHP like on my clavicle, but
Uh-huh.
I can't get that good front rack position.
Yeah.
I never did my first front squat till, gosh, I was already benching over 500 pounds before I ever did a
Wow.
front squat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You front squat what you bench.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, they're
about
both the
right.
same
Yeah.
exact
Yeah.
number,
Yeah.
and I found that to be the case with a lot of big benchers.
Yeah.
Our front squats kind of mirror our bench press. It's kind of funny.
Where do you see yourself going with your lifting in the next couple of years? Do you have any plans to maybe hop into strongman or?
We had a strongman competition last month that I wanted to do. But anybody who's watched my most recent videos, like, I'm going through a divorce right now.
Yeah.
The timing didn't work out so great. It was my weekend to have my son, and I could probably take him to the competition with me and have some people help watch. But, like, when I'm competing, I'm laser focused, and that's
Sure.
always been kind of what gives me an edge, even if somebody's better or stronger than me. My sheer focus, is on a higher level than most people. So, wasn't quite able to do it. Of course, then, recently I've tweaked my back. So right now it's just kind of having fun and working some other movements. But I would like to compete in strongman at some point.
Yeah.
For no other reason, it looks fun. Just go hang out, be part of the community, and test myself against some other lifters. Still going to do some powerlifting stuff. I intended on doing some more full power meets again with my back. Uh, Obviously, like, right now, it's kind of in the back of my mind. But after you get a few months out from an injury, you start thinking more clearly again. Definitely do some bench only stuff, if anything, because I
Yeah.
have fun with that. You know, Powerlifting is very toxic on social media, but in person, it's fucking great. The community's great. It's always a good time. So, definitely going to still do some powerlifting stuff. just generally, I do want to hit a 50-inch box jump before I turn
Nice.
40.
Yeah.
Athleticism diminishes with age, but I think there's still some gains to be had there. And like fighting father time is a big thing at this point. I want to try to regain some lost abilities and then, of course, maintain abilities as long as I can. So yeah, just a variety of things, just having fun, being a member of the community. I've been coaching a lot more recently. I put that off a couple of years ago. So I've got 7 lifters right now. I've got 2 more that potential joining the next month or two. So that's been fun doing that again. I do charge money for my time, of course, and that aspect is nice. But being there to help people and stuff, and give them some direction, it's fun. It's fun, and it's rewarding.
Yeah, you've posted some of your client transformations are insane, both like in strength and also in kind of body transformation. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah. My man Tobias, he's been with me. I just sent him his 50th week of programming, so we're going
wow.
on a year together.
Yeah.
He's my longest term client at this point. 19-year-old kid, does everything I say. Listens extremely well. Every now and then he'll overshoot an RPE, and he'll be like, "Sorry, coach," but I get it.
Yeah.
Uh, and his lifts have gone through the roof. Also, what I like with him, uh, we've put on about 10 kilos of body weight over the course of a year. It's not all muscle, of course. You don't put on all
Yeah.
muscle. But over the course of that year, like when his first month with me, like I track his heart rate variability, and his resting heart rate in the morning would typically be somewhere in the 70s, and oftentimes around 80 every day. And now, even after gaining 10 kilos of body weight, he's routinely under 60, his resting heart rate every morning.
Wow.
So he's gotten in better shape and stronger and bigger over the course of the year I've had him.
Yeah, I assume that all of your clients get conditioning work.
Everybody, month 1 is a conditioning block. It's non-negotiable. I do, like any clients I intake, if anybody's interested, I do charge the first 2 months up front. That's protect me from wasting my time and them from wasting their time, because that first month training block is boring as fuck. I'm not gonna lie, it's boring, and it is very conditioning based. And then the second block builds off of that conditioning of that first block. And then if they stay with me after block 2, block 3 is where we start to get more specific. And that's where shit gets different for everybody.
Mhm. Yeah. And I assume that probably those first 2 months you're learning that client and their kind of body and how they respond too.
Yeah, yeah, big time. And I recently had a client. I don't know if you've seen my post, but I have 2 Sams, and they're competing for the title of Sam
Oh,
1
yeah.
this year. So the current Sam 1 is Sam 1 by default because I had him first. But Sam 2 recently, after he finished his second block, typically I'll have a deload for everybody week 9. And it's a little bit odd, but it greatly reduces volume. But on my week 9, I let them just have a go for an RPE 9 single.
Nice.
And a lot of times they will hit new PRs, and we didn't peak for them. We weren't planning on them. But they just happened by proxy. And with Sam 2 in particular, he PR'd on squat and bench. He's a power lifter. He's going to compete July, but he didn't PR on his deadlift. And I told him, I was like, look, and his confidence on his deadlift, he was like, man, and I was like, well, you were expecting a PR because you PR'd your other 2 lifts.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so and PRs do happen, but I told him, I said, more often than not, the PRs I see are on deadlifts at this point, and they're not on squats and bench.
Mm.
So that did tell me with him that, like, hey, him in particular, because I don't do a lot of volume with deadlifts like I do with squats and bench in the first 2 months. And most people do PR on their deadlifts, but he didn't. And so it tells me with him, like, he does need a little bit more deadlift volume, and he does have a slightly better build for deadlift, and he can handle the volume as well. So that was, I knew intrinsically that, hey, that's a change that needs to be made with him. Is we need to throw him some more deadlift volume, and hopefully see that number come up, before we start, his meet prep and his peaking.
Yeah, it is really funny how an unexpected PR can recalibrate your expectations, because like anybody who is in basically like a preparatory phase before they even start their sort of strength block for their meet, you're not going to expect to PR anything, right? But just the
Right.
fact that he accidentally PR'd two things, it like sets you up to,
Right.
it's a glass half empty kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like if he didn't PR his bench, then he wouldn't have cared that he did his deadlift. But
Right.
because he did, it's
Yeah.
like, oh man, must be wrong with deadlift because I didn't PR it. It's like, no, there's nothing wrong, man. It's just your squat and your bench on it very well to this style of training, and your deadlift, I didn't give you quite that exact same style of training as the squat and bench. So it just let me know as a coach that, hey, he does need that with his deadlift as well, whereas most people typically don't.
Yeah, yeah. And so again, that's like that those first couple months, I guess, give you that chance to learn the client, and then you're able to just, so the longer that someone is your client, the more honed their coaching or their program is going to get, because you'll have known them longer and seeing how they respond.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's, the same with, I tell anybody, even if you're running like cookie cutter programs, like
Yeah.
don't program hop, oh, I ran this program once and these are the results I got. You run it again and see if the
Yeah.
results are similar, or if they're better, or if they're worse. And then probably run it one more time just to validate your parking.
Yeah.
And make sure. And it's the same with coaching. Like if, especially people tend to hire coaches in the powerlifting world, they'll hire a coach, 2 or 3 months out and say, peak me for the meet.
Yeah.
Whereas the off season is infinitely more important to have a coach, directing you and learning you and this and that. Peaking is going to be generally the same across the board. There's not many differences to it. And they'll hire a coach and say, peak me for the meet. And, they'll base that coach directly on their results from the meet. And it's like, well, that coach didn't have you for one off season, much less 2 or 3 off seasons,
Yeah.
multiple peaks to see what you respond to. They had you for 3 months going into a meet, and they don't know what the fuck you did before that. So you can't judge that coach just based off that, 12 weeks that he or she had you for. Because it is a learning process both ways. And I think what gets overlooked a lot, because programming is pretty easy for the most part. I think anybody can go online at this point, watch some videos, read some articles, and make a pretty good general strength program that's pretty universal. The thing with coaching, communication, learning how to communicate with your clients learning how to communicate with you, and being able to, and it's even better in person because you can see body language and stuff too. But you'll learn somebody through text, through voice messages, through video messages, through video chats. You'll learn to read between the lines a little bit, and they have something, maybe it's a heavy day they have programmed, and they tell you, oh man, like today at school I had this exam or something, it didn't go well, and blah blah blah. And let's ease off today. You've got a lot of stress going on. Let's take a step back and not risk hurting ourselves. Things of that nature. Or when they send you, you send them something easier to do, and they're just absolutely smoking it. And it's been a while since they've done anything fun or heavy, and it's like, hey, you're looking good today. Let's let loose. Go have fun.
Nice.
Go off program today.
Yeah.
Coach said it's allowed. And just learning how the communication is so important. And that, I think that's what really differentiates, a lot of the good coaches from, there's a lot of people out there that are just sending copy pastas and not discussing anything, not checking in. Like I tell my clients, like I am available for communication every day. That doesn't mean you have 24/7 access to me. Like I've got to sleep and I have things to do as well. But I promise them all that I will respond within 4 hours. And that's more or less just the thing to do because I respond way sooner than 24 hours to all of them. But that's just the sort of guidelines and promise I set with them initially. Um, but like I got one of my clients, like he's in the cars. I just got one of my cars that I got the supercharger upgraded and stuff. So me and him been shooting the shit about cars and stuff, even on like non-training days. And my man Tobias, he's always sending me like he's in Germany, so he's sending me like these German pastries that he's eating and stuff.
Nice.
And of all things he asked about of American snacks, he wants to try snowballs, and I'm like, dude, snowballs are like the most generic, awful tasting, like it just sugary disappointment that you will ever have. It's like, oh man, they look so good.
Yeah, no. You could do so much better. Yeah, you're gonna have to guide him in that respect. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it sounds like you specifically touched on the value of building that coaching client relationship, but do you think that makes that having that kind of rapport makes your clients more comfortable maybe telling you something about like an outside of the gym stressor that's going to affect their program? Yeah.
100%. 100%. And it's something that if I'm far away from a competition or with even my general people that don't compete, if we're in a block that's not super taxing, it's not really heavy, a lot of times those training sessions, it's kind of suck it up and get it done. Like this is not a big ask. But when it is getting into that more specific stuff and you're peaking or you've got a hard session coming up, then having that rapport and then being open to you. I have another client, he ended a long-term relationship. He injured his knee outside of the gym. He's a younger guy. I give him a lot of, just general life advice. Not that I'm like a life coach or anything, but I've been on the planet for almost 40 years. I've been through a lot of things that he's currently going through. So, that role is in there as well. And I think most good coaches, if they have that experience, we'll be glad to do that if they're worth anything as a coach. And also if they don't have that experience and they're a good coach, they should be willing to tell you like, hey, that's outside of my realm, which I've also told him, like, as far as like with me, I said, look, I know some things about rehabbing a knee injury. I've torn my meniscus, but I'm not a doctor. And he has a PT, and I'm like, told him like, you need to listen to your PT and do what he's telling you in regards to that. And we'll work around, what we can with what we can.
Yeah.
And we're currently doing like a push-pull split, and not doing squats or anything at the moment while he rehabs that with his PT. And that's even something where I let him. He's been lifting long enough that, like on his upper body days, I'm in full control. And then I've got one lower body day that I do for him, the main movements, and then he goes by feel on his accessories on that day. And then his other lower body day, like he does exclusively on his own now, and goes by feel while he's dealing with that injury. And with the understanding that once he gets to a point where he feels comfortable with his knee again, and he gets through the PT and all that stuff, that, that day will come back to me after that.
Mm. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Trusting him to know when he's ready, I guess.
Right. Exactly. And that, that relationship goes both ways. And if a coach knows every answer to every question, they're lying to you. And you shouldn't expect as a lifter for your coach to know every single thing. Ask them, obviously, ask away, ask any questions you have, ask them why they're giving you X movement or Y movement, and they should be able to answer those questions. But if there's something outside of just the nuts and bolts of lifting, and they may or may not know it, but they should be confident enough to tell you like either A, I don't know this is outside of my wheelhouse. You should ask a professional in that area, or B, I don't know that, but let me look into it and do a little research, and I will get back to you, and we'll see what I come up with. In the meantime, you should probably do your own research too, and then we can have a conversation about it.
Yeah, as I imagine that sometimes it is about just empowering them to realize that they don't just have to be helpless, and they can
Yeah.
seek out information on their own. Yeah.
And a lot of my lifters now, they'll send me something and they'll be like, they'll send a video and they'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to do this cue in this video," or, "Oh, I overshot this RPE," or, "I should have done this differently." And they're coaching themselves uh, in the chat as they send me the video and already
Wow. Yeah.
recognizing, what's going on. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you talked about kind of stepping into a mentor role. Not that you're trying to, but just it kind of arrives there and you're comfortable with that. And I
Yeah.
think that uh that's an aspect of your YouTube channel, and I think also of like Bald Omni Man. I think that a lot of people look to uh channels like yours and like Bald Omni Man's and see a figure who has wisdom to share, and I think that you're very much a mentor on that space too.
Yeah. And it's something like I don't feel obligated to do it, but I want to do it.
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
absolutely.
I'm just trying to help. Like I think back when because a lot of the viewers are that late teenager, early
Mhm.
20s. I try to think back to when I was that age. Like, what did I need to hear, or what would
Yeah.
have been good advice for me? And even though I may not be an expert in a certain field or whatnot, like I've got to a point like I've acquired a couple properties. I have my credit score is bigger than my squat. Um,
Nice.
I've been in a 16-year relationship. Unfortunately, it came to an end, but there's a lot of lessons I learned in there that I can pass along. My son is going to be 10 this year, so I've been a dad for almost 10 years now, and just trying to get some of that out there. Like I said, some of the stuff that I wish I would have heard when I was that age that could have helped me later in life. And now, as to whether or not I would have listened to that advice when I was that age,
Yeah,
who
you got to be
knows?
receptive. Yeah.
But we do have somewhat of a platform, and if I put it out there and on a given video, between 100 and 2,000 people see it, if 10% or 5% or 2 or 1% of people are receptive to that and it helps them, then that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's cliche, but to make a difference in one person's life, that's even the
Absolutely.
possibility of that is huge. And I think that also something that sets you up to excel at that is you are really good at articulating that kind of stuff. I mean, sometimes I think of like the classic movie dad who has the wisdom but just doesn't know how to get it out, but that's not the
Right.
case for you. Yeah, you're very comfortable expressing it in a way that's very easily digestible.
Man, like I went to therapy some years back. It was one of the best things I ever did.
Yeah,
Because before that, I was, that stereotypical dad that doesn't have feelings, doesn't express feelings,
yeah,
holds everything in. And, it was, I wasn't as happy as I thought I was until I went through that process
yeah,
and like came out on the other end so much better for it. And, you don't got to be a sensitive little bitch, of course. You don't need to cry at every little fucking thing. But being able to express your feelings and be vulnerable and have
yeah.
emotion is certainly something that you're going to be much better off as a man for having that ability versus not.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that we're still coming off of the hangover of a society where men were expected to either express their feelings through rage, or I don't know what the other opportunity is, but it's like it's not that rage was positive or rewarded, but it was masculine, right? And it's
Right.
like so that's if you're worried about appearing masculine, you can only allow yourself to feel that, and then you get to a point where you don't even know how to understand or like put a name on the other things you're feeling so it comes out as that maybe.
And that's exactly where I was. Like
Yeah.
I was that I grew up in a household. you know, both my parents, I give my dad a hard time. He's on his third wife. My mom's on her fourth husband. So I tell my dad all the time, like, mom's beating you, bro. You need to tie that up.
Yeah.
But no, I think they both finally found their person. But my mom's second husband was who I spent the most time with, and he was a military dude. And he very much cut from that cloth of, you know, men don't have feelings, and you know it's a sign of weakness to express them and be emotional and stuff. And I carried that with me for a long time. And like I said, I almost got divorced back in 2018, and I ended up going to therapy and marriage counseling and stuff. And you know, we are getting divorced for real this time. However, it was still a very, very much net positive going through that experience. And I think, you know, even, you know, my soon to be ex-wife would also validate that and say the same thing, that, you know, I came out way better for it on the other side of it. And like it almost like unlocked a whole other part of existence that I didn't know was there. That is, you know, absolutely fulfilling and phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the cliche of you become you're a different person with every romantic partner you're involved with because of who they bring out, you know, in you and who you are together as a pair. And
Right.
you don't lose that, you know, if a relationship ends. You have discovered things about yourself and learned lessons about yourself that persist, you know. And I think there is this sort of myopic mindset, or maybe like binary mindset, where, you know, if the relationship ends, that means it was all bad, right? But that's so much not the case. You know, you're together with
Right.
a person for a period of time, and maybe you grow in different directions, or what, for whatever reason. There can be sadness, you know, but sadness is just, to narrow it down to that, or the idea of like, people say like I had a failed marriage, and I that's such a wrong-headed way of thinking about that. And that's how you think about it. Yeah, probably it's going to remain a failed marriage. But if you can come away like that with the lessons learned and walk away, you know, bringing those with you, I mean, yeah, like you said, there's a lot of positivity there.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, like 16 years with somebody, like with her, like probably 95% of it was good. So
Yeah.
you know, like I mentioned on my video, it was like Game of Thrones. Like it was the best fucking TV show ever until the season finale
This is,
fucked it all up.
yeah, totally.
And you know,
Yeah.
you can still go back and watch seasons like 1 through
Uh,
5. I enjoyed the last season until the last episode. I know a lot of
yeah.
people didn't like the last couple seasons, but I was still enjoying it. Just the last episode, the way it
Yeah.
ended, like fucked it all up for me.
Really
But
fucked.
that's how I see my marriage, like Game of Thrones. Like when it was at its peak, it was the
Yeah.
best thing ever. Great memories that I'm going to take with me for my entire life. Me and her are still friends. There was, you know, some bitterness at first, of course, because there's going to be, and you know, there's circumstances that obviously I can't divulge personally, but
Yeah.
you know, we're on good terms, we're friends, you know, we communicate very well, we have a son together, so we're tethered for life. um so it's best to make the best out of it. And you know, she very much feels the same way. You know, look back at the good parts, and you know, unfortunately, circumstances at the end were what they were. But you know, if you got a 95% on your final exam in college or whatever, you're passing with flying colors. So,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely that's the way to look at it. Versus the, oh, we had a failed marriage because you know it ended in divorce. Uh, it's unfortunate and it sucks, but again, there was way more positive than negative.
Yeah.
If you look at it in the totality. And I would imagine that most long term relationships, even if they end, are as such.
Mhm.
Um, now maybe back in the old days, there were probably a lot of miserable people that stayed miserable together just because of how, you know, faux pas it was socially to get
Yeah.
divorced.
Yeah.
But
And
I would
that's
see this
far worse. You know, that's far worse
way
than
worse,
ending
way worse.
amicably. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think we're lucky that we live in a society where we don't have that restriction. And I don't think that, I mean, there certainly still is in some circles, perhaps a
right,
stigma, but I think a lot of that has been removed. And people like freak out about, you know, over 50% of marriages end in divorce. But I think that's just because we're allowed to be more honest, you know. And I think
right,
people stay in marriages, or used to stay in marriages, and they still do, because they're afraid, right? They're afraid of the consequence. They're afraid of the change afterwards. And so it's better to have the misery that you know than the unknown potential.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
All right. So I do have one more question for you
Yeah,
before we
man.
close. Why do you go to bed at 7:56? Is that the right
So
time?
yes, yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
7:56. That is the right time. So that's my son Dante. That's his self-imposed bedtime. Um,
Nice.
we always put him to bed at 8 o'clock. And any parents out there, any future parents, if you think consistency goes a long way in lifting weights and dieting, it goes even further in parenting. Be consistent from day one. Like I hear people all the time complain about, oh, my kids won't go to bed or my kids don't listen or don't do this. I don't have any of those issues at all. I don't think I'm better than anybody else, but we have been very consistent with our son from day one. But we always made him go to bed at 8 o'clock. And I'm wanting to say it was in first grade, maybe. I woke him up one morning and he says, Dad, I'm still tired. I don't think I'm getting enough sleep. Can I go to bed earlier? And I said, absolutely, buddy. I said, what time do you want to go to bed? He said, I think 7:56 p.m. will be good. So from that day forward, I've had an alarm on my phone set for 7:56 p.m. And when it goes off, he gets up, he goes to the bathroom, he takes his gummy vitamins, he goes to bed. He's allowed to read a book in his bed before he goes to sleep. That's it. And within 15 minutes, he's asleep every night.
Wow. Yeah.
Every night, like if he goes and stays the night at his friend's house, he's allowed to stay up late. When in Rome. He also he eats a little more junk food when he's with his friends, and again, when in Rome, like he's very clean with me. I do allow snacks from time to time. I don't think it's good to make them abstain 100% because when they get
Yeah.
out on their own, they're going to go fucking buck wild.
Oh yeah.
But his diet's very well with me, and then like I said, with his friends, I let him do what he does.
Yeah.
But he gets up every morning on school days. Uh, Oftentimes I don't have to wake him up, but usually I do. 20 till 6, he gets up with no complaint. Gets up, eats, gets ready, watches some cartoons. The gym is on the way to his school, so we'll hit the elliptical machine and the treadmill for a few minutes on the way there. Jiu-jitsu 2 times a week. We're about to up that to 3 times a week during the summer. But he's well-mannered. I get compliments all the time. I got compliments today. Like I went to go see my girlfriend at Subway after the gym, and I took him with me, and he got the free sandwich today. I didn't get the free sandwich today.
Oh,
So
damn.
yeah. But me and him and Nicole were talking, and there was another gentleman who came in and ordered a sandwich and was sitting over in the corner. And when he got up to leave, he said, I wasn't eavesdropping, and I'm sorry to intrude, but that boy right there is extremely intelligent, and whatever he does in the future with his manners and his intelligence, he's going to be great. And I hear that from adults all the time, and like I couldn't be more proud. And it's simply consistency. Like we me and his mother have been extremely consistent. We've talked to him like an adult since he was a baby. She taught him baby sign language, and I think, again, I'm not an expert here, but I think that went a long way in developing his brain. Babies can communicate. They communicate with crying. But if you teach them how to communicate, even if it's a nonverbal way, they don't communicate with crying anymore. Like I still remember this as mommy's milkies because I
Wow.
used that one
Yeah.
too.
I didn't even know that was, I mean, I'm not a parent, so I didn't even know baby sign language was a thing. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
she looked it up on YouTube, and she taught him. Like there was, I don't remember the other ones. I just remember mommy's milkies because I wanted to see her titties, and I'd be like, mommy's milkies.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But there's one for like I used the bathroom in my diaper. I need a diaper change. There's one for mom, one for dad. I think this one was eat when he was starting to eat solid foods, and they use crying as communication at first, but you have to guess what the cry. Like is he crying because diaper change? Is he crying
Right.
because he's hungry?
Yeah.
But kids are master manipulators. And when their only form of communication is crying, they carry that with them as they become toddlers and younger kids.
Yeah.
and they'll continue to use that crying as a manipulation tool, because they still intrinsically remember as a baby, oh, I cried and I got what I needed, whether it was a diaper change or food or what. But you teach them to communicate, and that crying isn't a tool anymore. That's not built into them no more, because they learned how to communicate. So they'll still try to manipulate you in other ways. Don't get me wrong. Like Dante learned the art of white lying very young, and we had to put a stop to that pretty quick. But yeah, they'll you teach them to communicate. That crying becomes less of a tool, and you don't have to worry about that being a thing. And now, like if he cries, like he's probably hurt, or his feelings are hurt, or like there's a legit reason for him crying. Like he's not using that as a tool, because he learned at a very young age how to communicate.
Well, I got to tell you, I hit the jackpot with my parents. My mother and father were incredible. I couldn't have had a better childhood. And a lot of the things that I'm hearing from you, I can look back now and recognize in my own upbringing. And I mean, I think about it every day, how lucky I was with my mom and my dad. And I know that he might be this is just his normal now, which is awesome. But I'm sure he's going to get to a point, in his maturity where he can look back, and maybe it'll come from seeing how some of his friends, have turned out. But he's going to shake your hand, and he's going to be able to see that and be very appreciative of it. So that's so awesome. It's really awesome.
Man. There's nothing like being a parent, and it's something that I didn't want initially, but now that I have it, like I couldn't see myself not doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure that hearing that from that man in Subway, or the other people who are saying that you're raising an intelligent and mature kid, I mean, that's got to feel as good as benching 550.
Better. It's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It never diminishes. Like anytime I hear it from somebody new, or hear it from somebody again, or like, he's got this little friend that he goes to his mother's house. And he's really, or she's the only person we've really let him go and stay with. And anytime like a new family member of hers is over there that he hasn't met before, like I get to hear it all over again.
Yeah.
So it's really awesome.
It's very cool. Well, hey, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I'm really glad that we got to chat.
Thanks, dude. If you ever want to do it again, just let me know.